The blood on his worn jacket wasn't his own. Marcus Hayes stood in the empty parking garage, hands trembling, as the well-dressed woman stared at him with wide eyes. She'd just watched him tackle an armed robber to the ground, the stranger in thrift store clothes who appeared out of nowhere. But now, as sirens wailed in the distance, she noticed something that made her freeze. The name stitched on his security guard shirt. A name she hadn't heard in 15 years. Before we continue with this incredible story, I want to invite you to join our Sage Stories family by hitting that subscribe button. If this story touches your heart, give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories of kindness inspire us all. Now, let's dive back into Marcus's unforgettable day. Marcus had been working the night shift at Patterson Industries for 3 months, his second job after spending 8 hours at the construction site. His daughter Emma needed new glasses, and the prescription wasn't going to pay for itself. At 42, Marcus carried the weight of single fatherhood like a badge of honor he never asked for. His wife had left when Emma was just 2, saying she couldn't handle the struggle anymore. That was 8 years ago, and Marcus had been running on coffee, determination, and the sound of his daughter's laughter ever since. That Tuesday evening started like any other. Marcus checked his watch as he walked through the underground parking structure, making his rounds before the building closed. His feet ached in boots that had seen better days, but he pushed through. In 6 hours, he'd be back at the construction site, operating a crane until his arms went numb. Sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford, not when Emma's birthday was coming up and she'd been eyeing the telescope at the science store for months. The scream cut through the concrete silence like a knife. Marcus didn't think. He ran toward the sound, his heart pounding, and found himself face to face with a scene that would change everything. A woman in an expensive burgundy suit stood frozen next to a black Mercedes, her purse on the ground. A man in dark clothes had a gun pointed at her chest, demanding her keys and wallet. The parking garage lights cast harsh shadows across both their faces. Marcus's training as a security guard amounted to a single afternoon seminar about calling the police and staying safe. Nothing prepared him for this moment. But when he saw the woman's terrified expression, when he noticed her hand subtly moving toward her pocket where her phone probably was, he thought of Emma. He thought of how he'd want someone to help his daughter if she was ever in danger. Before his brain could talk him out of it, Marcus charged. The impact sent all 3 of them sprawling across the concrete. The gun clattered away, spinning under a nearby car. Marcus felt his shoulder explode with pain as he hit the ground, but adrenaline carried him through. The robber scrambled to his feet and ran, disappearing into the stairwell without looking back. In the sudden silence that followed, Marcus lay on the cold floor, catching his breath, wondering if he'd just made the bravest or stupidest decision of his life. The woman rushed to his side, helping him sit up against a concrete pillar. She was shaking, her perfectly styled hair now disheveled, mascara smudged from tears she was fighting to hold back. "Are you okay? Oh my God, you could have been killed. Why would you do that?" Her voice cracked with emotion. Marcus managed a weak smile. "Couldn't just stand there, ma'am. You all right?" As she nodded, fumbling for her phone to call the police, something caught her attention. She looked at his security badge, then at his face, then back at the badge again. Her expression shifted from gratitude to confusion to something Marcus couldn't quite read. "Marcus Hayes," she whispered, reading his name tag. "Is that really you?" Marcus squinted at her in the fluorescent lighting, trying to place the face. She seemed to be in her late 30s, successful, put together despite the circumstances. Then recognition hit him like a second tackle. Diana. Diana Chen. His voice barely made it past the shock. 22 years ago, they'd sat next to each other in Mrs. Palmer's 5th grade class. Diana had been the new kid, fresh from Taiwan, struggling with English and facing cruel teasing from classmates who mocked her accent. Marcus remembered sharing his lunch with her when kids hid her backpack. He remembered standing up to bullies who made fun of the way she pronounced certain words. They'd been best friends that year, before his family moved across the city and they lost touch in the way kids do before social media existed. Diana's eyes filled with tears as she helped him to his feet. "You defended me back then too," she said softly. "You always put yourself in harm's way for other people, don't you?" The police arrived, took statements, and searched for the robber who'd long since vanished. A paramedic checked Marcus's shoulder, declaring it bruised but not broken. Throughout it all, Diana stayed close, insisting on handling everything, making calls to security, to the police chief, to people Marcus assumed were important. It was only when the commotion died down that she turned to him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You're working as a security guard," she said. It wasn't a question. Marcus shrugged his good shoulder, suddenly aware of how different their lives had turned out. 2 jobs, actually. Construction during the day. I've got a daughter. Emma. She's 10. Smart as a whip, wants to be an astronomer. Diana's expression softened even more. And her mother? Marcus looked away. It's just me and Emma. Has been for a long time. We do okay. She's happy, that's what matters. What Marcus didn't know was that Diana Chin had spent the last 15 years building Patterson Industries from a small tech startup into a major corporation. She was the CEO whose face appeared in business magazines, whose name was on the building where Marcus made his rounds. She'd arrived late that evening to retrieve documents from her car before a red-eye flight to New York. And now, looking at the men who'd saved her life, wearing a uniform with her company's logo, she felt something crack open inside her chest. "Come to my office," Diana said. "Please. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. There's something I need to discuss with you." Marcus showed up the next morning confused and worried, certain he was about to be let go. Maybe tackling someone in the parking garage violated some protocol he didn't know about. He'd worn his only decent shirt, the one he saved for Emma's school events. Diana's assistant led him past the security desk where his co-workers stared with unconcealed curiosity, up to the top floor he'd only seen from the outside. Diana's office overlooked the entire city, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the morning skyline. She stood when he entered, and Marcus noticed she looked tired, like she hadn't slept much either. "Marcus, sit down please. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting." She explained that she'd gone home the night before and couldn't stop thinking about him. She'd done something she probably shouldn't have, using her resources to look into his life. She knew about the 2 jobs, the mounting bills, the fact that he'd been turned down for a promotion at the construction company despite being their most reliable worker. She knew about Emma's medical expenses from last year when she'd had pneumonia. She knew he'd pawned his wedding ring and his father's watch to cover the hospital bills. Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment, with shame at having his struggles laid bare. But Diana held up her hand. "I'm not telling you this to humiliate you. I'm telling you because you saved my life last night without knowing who I was, working a job that barely pays enough while you're exhausted from another job that breaks your body. And 22 years ago, you saved me in a different way. You showed a scared little girl that kindness existed in the world." She offered him a position. Not as a security guard. As part of her operations team, with a salary that made Marcus's head spin. Full benefits. College fund contributions for Emma. She explained that Patterson Industries had a program for community heroes, though Marcus suspected she'd just created it that morning. When he tried to protest, to say he wasn't qualified, Diana's eyes flashed with something fierce. "You're qualified in the ways that matter," she said. "You're loyal, brave, and decent. Those are the qualities I want in my company. The rest we can teach you. Unless you're going to tell me that the boy who stood up for a bullied kid, who worked 2 jobs to give his daughter a good life, who threw himself at an armed robber to protect a stranger, isn't capable of learning new skills." Marcus thought about Emma, about the telescope she wanted, about the future he could give her. He thought about sleep, about not feeling like he was drowning every month when bills came due. But mostly, he thought about how kindness circles back in ways we never expect. How a 10-year-old boy's decision to share his lunch had planted seeds that bloomed into this moment, decades later. He accepted, his voice thick with emotion he didn't try to hide. Diana smiled, and for a moment, they weren't CEO and employee. They were 2 old friends who'd found each other again at exactly the right time. 6 months later, Marcus watched Emma squeal with delight as she peered through her new telescope from the backyard of their new apartment. The place had 2 bedrooms, working heat, and windows that didn't stick. He'd enrolled in night classes to improve his skills, supported by the company's education program. Emma was thriving, her latest report card stuck to the refrigerator with pride. And once a month, Diana came over for dinner, becoming the aunt Emma never knew she needed. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create ripples we never see. A shared lunch, a defended friend, a moment of courage in a parking garage, these things matter more than we know. They remind us that we're all connected, that what we do for others comes back to us in unexpected ways. Marcus had spent years believing he was barely keeping his head above water, not realizing he'd been planting gardens the whole time. Have you ever had an act of kindness come back to you when you needed it most? Or maybe you've witnessed how small gestures create big changes. Share your stories in the comments below. In a world that sometimes feels cold and disconnected, your experiences remind us all that compassion is never wasted, that helping others is never foolish, and that sometimes the people we save end up saving us right back. Thank you for being part of our Sage Stories family, and remember, every act of kindness matters, even when you can't see how.